There's a reason why she changes when you start struggling financially. And no, it's not always about the money. Why she tests you more. When you're struggling financially hits harder than most men realize, because the moment life gets difficult, people start seeing the real version of you. The pressure changes your energy, your confidence, your presence, and suddenly, the relationship feels different. But here's what most men never understand about why she tests you more when you're struggling financially. The tests usually begin long before the relationship breaks. So if you're a man who wants a stronger mindset, emotional control, confidence, and real understanding about modern relationships, subscribe to the channel right now. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and every new brother joining this community helps us grow and keep making these powerful videos for men like you. Topic 1. The moment she starts looking at you differently. A lot of men think a woman starts changing because the money ran out. But most of the time, it's not the bank account that changes everything. It's his energy after the problems begin. Suddenly, the funny, confident guy gets quieter. The man who used to lead conversation starts avoiding simple discussions, and without even realizing it, he starts walking into rooms like someone trying to survive, instead of someone building his future. That's when she starts looking at him differently, even if she still loves him. What's interesting is that these changes rarely start with huge fights. Usually they show up through tiny details most men completely miss. She starts paying more attention to his tone of voice. She asks questions she never used to ask before. Sometimes she casually mentions another successful guy in a way that seems innocent. And a lot of men see this as pressure or criticism, when in reality, she's trying to figure out something much deeper. Whether that man can still stay emotionally grounded when life gets hard. Because lost money can come back, but lost masculine presence is a lot scarier. There's a silent scene happening inside a lot of relationships in America right now. A man loses money, stress goes up, bills pile up, and without noticing, he starts apologizing for his own existence inside the relationship. He becomes more reactive, insecure, irritated, or emotionally distant, and that's usually when she starts testing him without even consciously realizing it. Not because she's cruel, but because hard times reveal sides of people that easy times usually hide. And what she starts seeing during that phase opens the door to something most men don't understand at first. Topic 2. Women don't only react to money, they react to emotional stability. One of the biggest mistakes men make is thinking women are only attracted to money. Sure, stability matters. Nobody dreams about living in constant chaos. But what really affects a woman's perception is something way harder to explain. The emotional feeling a man brings into the room when life starts falling apart. Because there are broke men who still carry calmness, direction, and presence. And there are wealthy men who completely fall apart emotionally every time a small problem shows up. That's why some guys get confused and say, "But I'm trying. She should understand." The thing is, sometimes she's not reacting to the lack of money itself. She's reacting to the man he becomes during the struggle. Some men lose a job and within 2 weeks they're drowning in complaints, self-pity, and comparison. Others start waking up earlier, building a plan, learning new skills, and staying mentally strong even while feeling scared inside. And trust me, women notice that difference way faster than most men think. In reality, the female mind is constantly paying attention to emotional signals. How does he react when something goes wrong? Does he explode, shut down emotionally, blame the world? Or does he still create a sense of safety even without having all the answers yet? An emotionally stable man isn't someone who never feels fear. It's someone who doesn't let fear completely take over his identity. And once she senses that inner strength, something interesting happens. The tests start getting deeper, because now she wants to know whether that stability is real or just a temporary mask. Topic 3. The silent tests. Most men don't even notice. Most men think a woman's test is something obvious and dramatic, but the biggest tests rarely look like tests at all. They show up through small comments, subtle behavior changes, and everyday moments that seem harmless. Maybe she takes longer to reply to texts. Maybe she starts questioning simple decisions she used to trust without hesitation. And the distracted guy thinks, she's just being difficult. But deep down, she's watching how he reacts when he feels his emotional position is being challenged. Some men fail these moments without even noticing. The second she becomes a little colder emotionally, he immediately switches into approval-seeking mode. He starts over-explaining himself, justifying every financial decision, or trying to convince her he's still worth it. It's almost like a nervous CEO walking into a meeting trying way too hard to prove competence. And ironically, the more desperately a man tries to regain validation, the more insecure he looks. Emotionally strong people usually don't panic every time tension enters the room. One of the most dangerous things about these silent tests is that they hit directly at the male ego. When she makes an indirect comparison, questions his ambition, or seems less impressed than before, many men go into emotional warfare without realizing it. Some become aggressive, others slowly become shadows of themselves, and some start working obsessively just to regain external admiration while internally falling apart. But there's an even more destructive mistake that usually appears during this phase, and it has silently destroyed countless relationships. Topic 4. The dangerous mistake men make when they feel financially weak. When a man starts feeling financially weak, there's an almost automatic reaction that destroys his presence without him realizing it. He starts operating from fear. And fear makes people do strange things. Some men become addicted to validation. Others try to compensate for insecurity by overpromising, overspending, or becoming emotionally overavailable. Deep down, it's almost like they're saying, "Please, don't lose respect for me." And that energy completely changes the dynamic of the relationship. The problem is that emotional neediness rarely creates respect. In fact, it usually accelerates exactly what the man fears most. Think about how many guys start sending huge emotional texts trying to explain themselves, justify failures, or convince a woman they're still good enough. But masculine strength is rarely communicated through emotional speeches. It shows up in the way a man keeps moving, even while life feels chaotic. A man can be financially broke and still project stability. But once he loses emotional direction, everyone around him feels it. There's a huge difference between vulnerability and desperation. An emotionally mature man can admit he's struggling without turning the struggle into his identity. He doesn't need to pretend everything is perfect, but he also doesn't turn every conversation into an emotional funeral. And interestingly enough, this is usually the phase where women start asking themselves something important. Is he temporarily struggling? Or is he starting to see himself as a defeated man? Because the way a man sees himself during hard times directly affects the level of admiration he creates, and that leads to a truth very few people understand about attraction. Topic 5. Why purpose is more attractive than money alone. There's something many men realize way too late. Money impresses, but purpose sustains admiration. That's why some men remain extremely attractive even while driving an old car, living modestly, or rebuilding life from scratch after losing everything. They still carry direction. They still talk about their goals with energy. They still walk into rooms like men who know where they're going. And that creates a powerful sense of future. Because deep down, women don't only look at a man's current condition, they look at his momentum. Have you ever noticed how some rich men feel emotionally small, while other broke men carry huge presence? That's because attraction isn't built only on resources. It's built on inner strength, mental clarity, and emotional leadership. A man without purpose becomes emotionally heavy inside a relationship. He complains too much, procrastinates, loses the spark in his eyes, and slowly drifts through life on autopilot. Now compare that to the guy who may be financially struggling but is still studying, building projects, going to the gym, learning new skills, and rebuilding himself day by day. Completely different energy. In the United States, a lot of men fall into a silent trap. They believe their value depends entirely on their bank account, so when the money drops, their identity crashes with it. But strong men understand something important. Resources can disappear temporarily, but purpose is a daily decision. And women notice very quickly when a man is still connected to his mission. Because at the end of the day, she doesn't just want comfort. She wants to feel like that man can keep moving forward even during the storm. But there's a dangerous detail hidden inside all of this. Financial struggles don't just affect a man's wallet. They start changing his energy in ways he doesn't even notice. Topic 6. How financial stress changes male energy without him realizing it. Financial stress changes a man in ways he barely notices at first. It's not just about worrying over bills or work. Slowly, his entire body starts carrying tension. His tone of voice changes. His patience gets shorter. His mood feels heavier. Even the way he walks into a room starts feeling different. And the scary part is that most men think they're hiding it perfectly, when in reality their energy has already started affecting the entire relationship without them realizing it. Some men keep saying, "I'm fine," but their behavior tells a completely different story. They stop sleeping well, become mentally distracted during conversations, lose emotional presence, and start overreacting to small problems. A simple question turns into irritation. An innocent comment feels like a personal attack. And little by little, the woman starts feeling like she's living with someone emotionally unavailable even though he's physically still there. It's like trying to hug someone who's mentally somewhere else all the time. His body stays in the relationship, but his mind is trapped inside a constant internal battle. Interestingly, emotionally strong men aren't men who never feel pressure. They simply learn not to let pressure control the atmosphere around them. Many business owners, athletes, and leaders go through massive financial crises without turning it into a permanent identity. They keep training, maintaining routines, taking care of their appearance, controlling emotions, and protecting their minds. Because they understand something important. People rarely react only to the problems a man faces. They mostly react to the way he carries those problems. And that's exactly where the dangerous line begins between a woman still seeing strength in a man or slowly starting to lose respect for him. Topic 7. The difference between a woman testing you and losing respect for you. A lot of men confuse emotional tests with complete loss of interest, and that makes them react in the worst possible way. When a woman is still testing a man, there's usually emotion involved. She still watches him, challenges him, questions him, and tries to understand who he really is under pressure. As strange as it sounds, as long as she's still emotionally reacting, there's usually still investment in the relationship. The real danger begins when she stops observing completely, when the curiosity disappears, when her eyes shift from intensity to silent indifference. One of the clearest signs of lost respect is when a man starts abandoning his identity just to desperately keep the relationship alive. He stops leading his own life and starts chasing approval non-stop. He tolerates behavior he would have never accepted before. He cancels goals, accepts disrespect, and becomes emotionally dependent on her mood. And ironically, the more he tries to hold on to the relationship out of fear, the weaker he appears emotionally. Respect rarely survives once a man stops respecting himself first. Now, when a woman still believes in a man's potential, there's a noticeable difference even during difficult times. She may complain, pressure him, or show frustration, but there's still emotional energy there. There's still reaction. There's still expectation for growth. The problem is that many men focus so much on her behavior that they forget to analyze their own posture during the crisis. Because in the end, a man's behavior during hard times silently answers one critical question. Is he simply going through a rough season? Or is he slowly becoming a man without direction? And the answer to that question usually appears in the exact thing women watch most closely when a man feels like he has nothing left. Topic 8. What she really wants to see when you have nothing. When a man has no money, no stability, or feels like he's in the darkest season of his life, many people think women expect perfection. But most of the time, what she's really looking for is much simpler and much rarer. She wants signs that the man can still lead himself even during chaos. It's not about having every answer figured out. It's about not completely abandoning his posture during hard times. Because a man who loses money but keeps discipline, clarity, and emotional control communicates something incredibly powerful: emotional safety. Think about two men going through the exact same financial crisis. The first spends his days complaining, blaming the economy, becoming aggressive, and emotionally sinking deeper every week. The second man also feels fear. He also loses sleep sometimes. But he keeps training, studying, searching for solutions, keeping his word, and controlling his mind. And here's the interesting part. Even without money, the second man usually creates far more admiration. Because women observe consistent behavior much more than motivational speeches. They watch who a man becomes when nobody is clapping for him anymore. At the end of the day, difficult seasons act like an amplifier of masculine identity. They reveal whether a man depends entirely on external circumstances to feel valuable or whether he has internal strength built inside him. And maybe that's exactly why some of the most respected men go through brutally hard seasons before building the life they truly want. Pain forces a man to discover who he really is once the status disappears. And once he learns that lesson, not only do relationships change, the way he sees himself never becomes the same again. Conclusion: most men think financial struggles destroy relationships because of money. But after everything you heard today, you already know the deeper truth. Hard times don't just expose your bank account. They expose your mindset, your emotional control, your discipline, and the way you carry yourself when life stops going your way. And maybe the biggest question every man watching this needs to ask himself is this: if everything external disappeared tomorrow, would you still recognize the man in the mirror? Because women notice confidence, but they respect resilience. They notice success, but they trust emotional stability even more. So don't use difficult seasons to become bitter, desperate, or emotionally weak. Use them to build the version of yourself that pressure cannot break. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt a relationship change during financial struggles? What do you think women truly test the most in men during hard times? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this video gave you a new perspective, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because we're building a community for men who want a stronger mindset, better relationships, and real self-mastery. We're getting closer to 1,000 subscribers, and your support helps this message reach more men who genuinely need it.